Annie, can we pass the ball to Brendan and have Brendan start sharing, and Chris and I will go off screen and mute ourselves. And Brendan's going to talk about what's new in planning analytics with Watson. So take it away, Brendan.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So today I'm going to talk to you about planning analytics with Watson and the changes that have come out for the last several months. We're going to go back to July and kind of move it forward. As we're going through this, you'll also see a lot of the screens look very similar to the Cognos Analytics with Watson as well. That's because they're going to the same platform behind the scenes. So all the navigation, et cetera, is going to be the same. A lot of the widgets are exactly the same between the two. Before we get into the changes, I wanted to bring up a concept. So in October 2020, Gartner released this article talking about extended planning analytics. And what that is, most companies, when they go through the planning and budgeting process, they do that in a siloed fashion. For instance, in the graphic here, sales will come up with their own forecast, finance comes up with their own forecast. They're kind of put together a little bit, but they're very disconnected. If sales changes their forecast, doesn't necessarily always end up in finance. And inevitably, at the end of the process, finance ends up with a budget, and they're like, where do these numbers come from? So extended planning and analytics is a concept where everything feeds something else, right? So if you start with supply chain, it will feed your marketing budget or plan. That will feed your workforce, which will go to sales, which go to IT, which goes to finance. And as those things change, all the other plans change with it. So that in the end, everybody knows exactly where the numbers came from. Everything's completely integrated. And it makes your budgeting process go a lot quicker, save a whole lot of time. So planning analytics with Watson is basically purpose-built for this concept. With integrated cubes, you can save time and cost. Some customers have reduced their forecasting time by 70% and saved over $1 million in the process. And this is based on some surveys that IBM has done back to their IBM Planning Analytics customers on their implementations. Because the plans can feed one another in planning analytics, like I mentioned before, any adjustments to any of the siloed previously plans will then flow all the way through to the finance budget and forecast. You can also use the Watson AI predictive model as part of the planning analytics with Watson now. So you can get that additional layer of accurate forecasting using the AI part of it. And then by streamlining it, you'll achieve a better view of company performance. So why go with planning analytics with Watson? First of all, it's a very scalable environment. Many Fortune 100 companies utilize the environment and have for since the 80s, 90s. Integration is very simple. So what you'll find is most of the people that actually operate planning analytics with Watson internally, they're finance or operations people. They're not typically IT people. And the programming language, if you will, is very easy to pick up. A lot of it's Excel-based, etc. You can deploy on either the web or the cloud, on-premise or the cloud. IBM does support both those environments still, and that is a differentiator in the market right now. A lot of the other OLAP tools like planning analytics are just going cloud-based. And it's backed by the TM1 engine. Like I said, TM1 has been around since the 80s, used by large companies such as Exxon, Amazon, Nike, etc., to do real complex, large models working with data. So going over some background, last year's user group, we went over kind of the changes that were done on-premise for Planning Analytics Workspace. Over this year, they've kind of deployed those same changes as well as a bunch of additional ones into the cloud version. So now both cloud and local on-premise customers can get this new functionality. How do you get the updates? So if you are a either cloud or on-premise customer, if you go to the administration welcome page up here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll get a preview new experience button. When you do click on that, you get a pop-up that comes up and basically says that anything you create in the new experience will be saved separately, or you have to save that separately, and that content couldn't be viewed in the old experience. So it's a toggle back and forth that you go to. And once you do upgrade to the new experience, you can't go back. So what we're suggesting to a lot of our clients is that if they do want to upgrade, do that first in development first. Test everything, have your users get in, make sure that all the reports and everything are working fine before you actually click on that button to formally upgrade. So we're going to go over some of these changes month by month that IBM has released. To find these changes out on the web, if you go to ibm.com/planning analytics, it'll list each release, a date, and then the changes that are in there. A lot of these are, like what Chris was saying with Cognos Analytics side, performance improvements, small changes that have been done to the UI just to make things a little bit easier and make things look a lot better. Okay, so starting with July, what they did is the data workbench is now fully integrated into Planning Analytics Workspace. So before you had to go to a separate application to create a workbench to do any modeling. Now it's actually embedded into Workspace itself, and you've got a separate area in data and models to get to that workbench. Also in July, there were some improvements that were done to proportional spreading, as well as search capabilities. So a lot of us that have been using TM1 for years, when we've gone to Workspace, we've kind of missed out on the search capabilities using wildcards and the question mark to find patterns in data, etc. That is now back in the set editor. So you can actually use the question mark or the asterisks like you could before in the old Planning Analytics environment. As well as when you plot charts and graphs, you can ignore zero values. So here on the screen, the top graph we've got where we've plotted out the zero values, and then on the bottom where we've said ignore the zero values. So it kind of smooths out those graphics and makes them easier to read better. Also in August, they released the ability to be able to pin widgets or components within Planning Analytics Workspace. User can pin them without being in edit mode, which means that any user can open up any visualization in Planning Analytics and pin that and copy it and create their own off of it. Before, you had to have edit rights to be able to open those workspace tabs, if you will, to be able to pin those widgets and copy them for your own content. Also in September, they released an integration with decision optimization. So there's now a portal in Planning Analytics Workspace that allows you to connect to the decision optimization area and actually run Watson AI jobs from Planning Analytics Workspace. Real cool feature. You can create also action buttons in Planning Analytics Workspace to go out and do those AI jobs as well without jumping off to another screen to do it. In the administration module, it shows those integration points now. So there's also the Cloud Pak for Data integration as well as part of Planning Analytics Workspace. And here's where you can create your action buttons on what it actually what the action button is going to do when you click on it. Also in September, they released some functionality to when you save and select a template, you can make that either be a single page or tabbed. So if you saved it as a tabbed, you can add additional tabs to it. If you save something as a single page, that template cannot ever have any additional tabs to it. So it's a way to control your content a little bit better and setting up templates and stuff for your users that are going to go in there and make their own visualizations. Another big change that was made is on the web, on the cloud. You can now download a welcome kit directly from Planning Analytics Workspace. This is huge. You know, especially for us when we're working with multiple clients, anytime IBM makes a change to the usernames or passwords or the links, etc., on the cloud, you had to get an email from IBM that was always encrypted. You had to get the password to unzip it. And you never were sure that you had the right welcome kit until you actually tried to log in and see if the credentials worked. Now you have the ability to actually download that welcome kit on demand directly from the administration window. The other cool thing that I'm excited about is you can now manage database connections through the workspace administration. For those of you that have used TM1 in the past or Planning Analytics in the past, if you were using ODBC connections and either the username or the password or the connection name needed to change, you would have to go through every single Turbo Integrator process on the server and make all those changes individually. And then, of course, if you had them on multiple servers, you'd have to do that as well. Now you can go directly into administration and make those changes to those connection names directly from there, and it will automatically change all of the Turbo Integrator processes that are connected to that. So it's a lot easier to manage that operation. October also brought a new mapping capability, and it's actually the same mapping capability that Chris just showed you. If you notice, and if you ever used the old Planning Analytics Workspace mapping, it would only basically get you down to the state level. The new capabilities, you can actually drill in to regions and add layers to your maps as well. It's also connected and integrated with Mapbox, so you can display those layers of graphics through Mapbox. October also brought new scatter visualizations. So this was something that a lot of users have been asking for a while on the planning analytics side. And it was released before, but they were kind of clunky. You now have the ability to really customize these scatter visualizations, reorder things, you can group things, you can move things around as far as the types over here on the right hand side, reaggregate them, etc., directly on the visualization itself without having to do that actually in the data. Another big change that was rolled out in October was the ability to reset a book. So when you open up a book in Planning Analytics Workspace, it may have several tabs to that book, and you can do data entry on any of those tabs. You could move those data points around, you could change the visualizations. You have the ability to reset the entire book and the data associated with it. So if I got 20 minutes into some changes and then I realized, no, let's just start over from scratch, you can now click the reset button for the whole book. It'll undo everything that you did. You can also just do undo data entries too. So if you keep clicking the undo button, it'll go back to the last change that you made when you logged in. So it's for the current session that you were logged in as. It will undo all those data entry points all the way to the point you logged in. You can't use the feature if you committed a sandbox. That basically erases that function, and it permanently commits that data that was in your sandbox to the base. So real quick, how can LPA help? We're doing a lot of work with our clients. One on, does planning analytics with Watson make sense? Does going to the cloud make sense? A lot of on-premise customers that are looking at the new functionality, especially with the AI infusion of forecasting. We've had a lot of conversations recently about going to planning analytics specifically on the cloud. We do cloud readiness assessments as well. So we'll come in, look at your data sources, look at the processes that you're running, look at the types of reports that you've built, whether you're using perspectives for a lot of reports, etc. We now have the ability to do custom API work, like Don mentioned. We're now part of the Converge team, and we have the ability to do custom API front ends, as well as integration points for planning analytics. That's something that we were not able to do before. We do a lot of health checks. So if you have planning analytics already and you're having some performance issues, or you want to expand your environment, you don't think you've got the capacity to do so, we can come in and take a look at your model, see if it can be optimized, and see if we can give you some headroom to get some additional development in. We also do training. So we have several pre-built courses that we have in planning analytics. And we can also do custom training, and you can pick and choose the topics for that. Proof of concepts, mentoring. This one's a big one, especially with a lot of our smaller planning analytics shops, where they want to get up and running on planning analytics. They don't necessarily want us to do the whole thing, but we can come in and kind of do the training up front, and then meet with the client team periodically to kind of keep them going on the application development side. And of course, we do staff augmentation as well. So we can actually come in and run your planning analytics administration for you, either part-time or full-time, as well as do any additional development needs that you have. And with that, Don, I think I'm ready for questions.
Okay, so let me start with this one. You mentioned that most of these latest enhancements are available both on-premise and cloud. Is planning analytics with Watson going to continue to be offered on-premise?
Absolutely. That's one of the differentiators in the marketplace right now that IBM has. A lot of the other competitors are actually forcing their clients to go to cloud. IBM is continuing to invest in the kind of the dual fork platform, the on-premise and on cloud. The releases are pretty much the same on the same timeline for both. So you're not losing any functionality by going to cloud or being on-prem. But yes, they will continue to have an on-premise version. IBM just knows there are some customers that just do not want to go on cloud.
Gotcha. All right. Our company has not used planning analytics. What is the advantage of it over just using Cognos Analytics? And
Okay.
is there any integration between the two?
Okay. So yeah, planning analytics, it's a modeling tool. So its biggest thing is that it's read-write capable. So anything that you're asking for user input, or to be able to change data, model the data really, is a good use case for planning analytics. So forecasting, budgeting, strategic planning, even we have some customers that use it for P&L reporting. They'll send out a template, and they'll have each location manager go in there and type in comments on maybe why they didn't make their budget or their forecast to actuals. And Planning Analytics actually stores all that information and aggregates it up and allows you to report off of it, similar to Cognos Analytics, but it gives you that user read-write capabilities that you don't have on the Cognos Analytics side. As far as integration, yes, you can, and they really are going to the same platform. So I believe early next year they will actually be fully on the same platform backend. And Planning Analytics will just be a module within the Cognos Analytics suite, I believe. But you can create any Cognos content using Planning Analytics cubes. It simply creates a data source behind the scenes, and you pull directly from those cubes onto reports or dashboards into Cognos Analytics.
Great. Great. And if somebody wanted to try out Planning Analytics just to get a feel for it, is there a trial version available?
There's actually a trial version. There's a 30-day trial. So if you go to ibm.com, you can sign up for the trial version, which gives you some starter kits, if you will, for different types of business processes. You can go in there and create a model. You have full access to it for 30 days. There also is an on-demand model. So Chris mentioned this on the Cognos Analytics side. There's also an on-demand for Planning Analytics, and it's kind of it's a wave that we see a lot of users now that want to kind of test the water with Planning Analytics. They'll do the on-demand at, I think it's $20 to $30 a month. It's a small server, but it allows you the ability to go in there and kind of create your own model. It's secure, and really prove the worthiness of it, and make sure before you make some type of larger investment in the product, you can actually go in there and just do it on trial as well, or on demand.